أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين حبيب الله العالمين والقاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I'd like to first start my talk with thanking those who were in charge of the Hamilton Center, for they gave me the chance to speak this Muharram, and for me to be able to begin speaking, as I had started before with them, and inshallah, Allah gave me the tawfiq to start in person, to start speaking. And inshallah, may Allah bless all of those who are behind the camera, who are working hard to make this center better. And inshallah, we can work together in the future with all of the future schedules and such events. And tonight I want to discuss one topic that many of us really deal with after when we feel spiritually high after certain times of the year. And this is especially seen during the end of Ramadan. And we can also see this during the end of the schedules, the end of the Muharram Majalis. Many of us feel that during these nights that we come here back to back to back, to all of these lectures, and then when we go home and we continue on with our lives, we might not feel as spiritually high as we are at this very moment. So we feel really close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these nights, and we feel close to Abdullah, we feel close to Ahlul Bayt. But when we go home and we spend most of the other days, we lose the benefits of these majalis as we start to forget about it, as we start to move on. And of course, this is something that is natural, for it is our own jihad al-nafs. We are always in a fight between our good and our bad, within our own desires, to fight for doing good. Because at the end, it's our human nature for us not to always feel high. And those who always feel high, they are not, as we can say, among us. Those are the ma'asumin, who are always among the pure. But us as humans, it is natural for us to feel like we fluctuate in our spirituality. Sometimes we might feel high, and sometimes we might feel low. And there's no feeling ashamed about it. We should not feel that, oh, I feel like I am lower because I have these low points in our lives. But trust me, we all have these kind of states, and we should not feel ashamed about it. But rather we can look to bounce back, to move back up, to get back to that spiritual high point. And inshallah, what I want to discuss in the short time I have today, I will not take too much time as it is a weekday. So, and it's our last of our speech, as our last of our majalis, to discuss a few of these things that we can do to keep that spiritual high that we have during Muharram, and for us to remember about Abdullah and Ahlul Bayt, whether it be after these days have passed, after Arba'in has passed, and we move on to our own regular lives. And the first one would have to be for us to be God conscious. The dhikr. Dhikr is the most important aspect of our spirituality. For when we do remember Allah, and we do have the dhikr of Allah, we feel our own hearts connected to Allah through these dhikr, through us being in the remembrance of Him, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should not feel that we have our low points. And if we do, whenever we are at that low point, we should try to remember Allah. We should try to do the dhikr of Allah. And sometimes we try to feel more closer to Him, even though we have our own low points. So our spirituality and our dhikr of Allah should not end here in our last majalis, but it should be continuing further on, for us to be conscious of Allah, for us to say the dhikr of Allah, for us to remember Him. So this is one aspect that we can make sure that we keep our spiritual high points, to be God conscious, to be part of the muttaqeen, to be part of the people who do the dhikr of Allah. And another aspect of it would be to donate, to give generously. Because we have a hadith from Rasulullah. He says the believer's shade on the day of judgment will be his charity. That which he had given, his charity is his shade on the day of judgment. And Islam makes a large point in giving our charity. And let that not be just the charity that we have to give. Let that not just be that I have to give my khum, so I will give it. But rather from our own money. As we had the Sayyid, he said in the previous nights, why does it always have to be that the charity has to be the charity of Abu Abdullah? Let us give it from our own pockets. Because on the day of judgment, as we hear that is our shade. So we hear the events that are going, unfortunately, in Afghanistan. And whatever we can do to help them, we should be able to give charity. And through that charity, we feel more near to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through this center, it has many of its ongoing projects going on. We should try to give the money for them. We should try to give charity. And this is also a way in which we can feel spiritually high when we do give for Allah. And only for the sake of Allah and not for ourselves. So this is the second act that we can make sure that we do. And the third point that I want to speak about is for us to have our acts of ibadah. During these nights, we've been able to read the ziyarat of Ashura. And this ziyarat is a very powerful ziyarat. And we should try to, in our own ibadah, we should not lose this ziyarat. As it's not something that is only meant for reading once a year during the day of Ashura, but rather every single time if we can try, if it's a weekly thing, we can try to read this ziyarat. As it helps us, we gain the sawab of it. And if not, I know many of the centers, I'm not too sure if it is in this center, but there are many centers that read the Dua Kumail on Thursday nights, the night of Friday. And if we do this kind of ibadah, if we do the Dua Kumail and we recite it, we can be sure that we feel more close to Allah through this ibadah. We feel more close to Him through these actions and through our prayers. As I said in a previous night, let us not make our prayers a prayer that we will leave for tomorrow, that we will say that this is something I will do later, for I have a lot of time ahead of me. For we do not know if we have tomorrow. So let us not make our ibadah something small. And we can try to make sure that after these majalises have ended, that we should try to be doing this ibadah. We should try to be doing our salah. We should try to read the du'as, the ziyarats. All of these have their own spiritual aspects. Many of us might have felt it after we leave the majalis at night. We feel even closer to Allah. When we read the ziyarats, when we read the du'as, we feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We feel closer to the Ahlul Bayt. So this is an important aspect of ibadah. And what I can attach to this is coming to these events. Unfortunately, many times we see that during Eid or during Ashura, during the Laylatul Qadr, we see many crowds. We see our masjids are packed. And then when we are in our regular weekly programs and such, we see there's a very few amount of people, the people that are always there. So we should try to, if we ever feel spiritually low, the most important also aspect is that ibadah, that we come here and we come to these du'as and we come to do these prayers with the people as we feel a community, a sense of community also with a sense of ibadah. We'll feel closer through coming to these events. So let us not make coming to the masjid, coming to the community center, something that is specifically meant for Muharram, something that is specifically meant for Ramadan. Rather, we should try to make it as much as possible. And I know that our schedules are busy, but we can try to make it. If we put our hearts into it, of course. If we ask Allah to help us, we can always make time to come to these majalis, to come to these events that, alhamdulillah, we have many organizers that they make for us. Another aspect, the fourth aspect here that I want to talk about to maintain that spiritual high would be to increase our knowledge. In these last few nights, we have listened, we've sat under the mimbars of our Maulanas and we have listened to what they've said. So let us make sure that we continue learning and let us not just be something that we listen to. There are many websites that I have found, websites such as Al-Islam and such. These are all amazing websites that we have brothers have created. And there are so many resources on Islam that we find on the Ahlul Bayt, on any topic that we think about. We can find them in these websites. If we try to look for them, we will find them. And there are many books that, if you come to me, I can recommend to you. These are books that if we read them, we can rebound off our spiritual lows. And we can feel even closer to Allah. So that is the fourth aspect for us to increase our ma'rifah. For when we do our ibadah for Allah, we should increase our ma'rifah too. We should know who it is that we are praying to, and we should know who it is that we are connecting ourselves to. Who are these Ahlul Bayt? When we have ma'rifah with them, we learn to love them even more. We have more of the love in our hearts for these people. And the last aspects that I want to talk about is for us to, of course, make sure that everything is consistency. Consistency, consistency, consistency. This is also a very important point, because many of us, we try to burn ourselves. During these Muharram nights, we come back to back, and then after that we're like, okay, I've done it. I've got myself up. Time to go home. I'll see you next Muharram. See you guys. This is very difficult. This is something that many of us might feel. But we should try to strive for moderation. For us to come, maybe let's try to make it a habit within ourselves, that I will come twice a month. We know that we might be busy. So for me to say that I will do it every other night, I will read dua, I will do the night prayer, that I will do this. Then we see by the next week, we see that he's gone. He doesn't even pray his regular prayers. So we should strive for that moderation, for us to be connected through moderation, through sustainability. It's for us to make a habit for ourselves. And it's not very difficult for us. If we try to join and we come every few weeks, we start to feel that sense of community, and we continue to join. And it's for we find that love, that Ahlul Bayt, that it doesn't shrink any less, that we feel that spiritual high. And of course, I want to just end off my talk today on that last point, for us to be spiritually high. So inshallah, let us ask Allah to make us spiritually high in these aspects, so that even when we go down, we should ask His help for bouncing back, for us to continue to go up, as we all have our own spiritual lows, and we all have our times that we feel down. And in those times, we should make sure that we do all of these that I say. We should try to do our ibadah, try to join our centers, try to be consistent with our actions, to try to give sadaqah, to give donation, to make sure that we do ma'rifah, for us to be the muttaqeen. So inshallah, we can try to make this in our own selves. And we should now, at the end of my speech, try to self-reflect. After this Muharram, what will I be doing? Will I be changing ourselves? For anyone that spends one day, if they have not changed from the person that they were yesterday, some may say that this is a day wasted. We should try to build our own character, and so that we can feel ready when the Imam comes, when the Imam Zaman comes of tomorrow, when he's there, that we are ready to be by his side. Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah, wa ala arwah allati hallat bifanaik. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. إجماع صلوات.